there was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California. And the interest was that there were too many white men.
The same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House. And I can promise you, it was my ancestors that built the White House.
Hey, shout out to all of our subscribers and members here on the channel. My name is Reese Waters, and I'm troubled. I want to start out by sending my condolences and love out to all those in California that have been affected by the wildfires. But unfortunately, there is no tragedy, no disaster so stark that it won't prevent it from being politicized. And I mean immediately.
President Trump has raised the issue of FEMA not having enough money, et cetera. This is your territory. Is the Congress going to fully fund what California needs in order to handle these fires, to recover from them if it's needed?
Absolutely, we should. This, of course, is a town that constantly disappoints people, but shame on all of us if we don't acknowledge that these disasters hit every state, and this is a really big one. People need to expect that their state, local, and federal government are going to be there, and we need to be.
I think that members always end up coming together when it comes to these disasters and doing the right thing by the people that are there. What really becomes the glue that puts it all together is the actual execution of the resources. And that's something that I think members of Congress need to do a much better job about, is making sure that the money gets on the ground to the people who need it the most in the manner and the speed at which
And just in December, we did together, Republicans and Democrats, refill much of that disaster fund. This is going to take a lot of money out of that.
So we are in, it's January 8th. President Trump is going to be inaugurated in just a few days.
About to say.
The incoming president, I hate to say it, but he has a history of threatening to not fund fire relief, specifically to California.
Now, we've seen this before, and recently, we just saw it with the hurricanes.
Laura, I want to ask you about something that the former president said last night on that stage, specifically about Hurricane Helene in your home state of North Carolina. He said that FEMA is only offering $750 to Americans who have had their homes destroyed. That's not true. He's also echoing conspiracy theorists online who falsely claim that the administration is redirecting disaster money for undocumented immigrants. That's also not true.
And who can forget what we heard about the last Trump administration? But at least he seems to be on top of this one.
The true tragedy. I know those areas very well. I have many friends living in those houses. That is a true tragedy. Nobody ever thought. I mean, virtually Beverly Hills and areas around Beverly Hills are being decimated. The biggest homes, some of the most valuable homes in the world are just destroyed. I don't even know.
And surely you can't politicize something without a little help from your friends.
So who else is running things? This right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the leadership of the LA Fire Department. I sure hope they know what they're doing.
So naturally, CNN's Scott Jennings got his marching orders, but there was just one problem. Jasmine Crockett was in his way.
Signal priorities, because also in California, you might have recall a news story from last year. There was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California. And the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have budget cuts.
Did you see Jasmine Crockett? Did you see her reaction? Did you see her? It's pretty much a bit at this point. It is pretty much a bit at this point. You saw fit at this time to mention DEI. What's the next thing you're gonna say? DEI is the reason why you sitting on that side of the table? Actually, it does look like they balanced that table. They balanced that table pretty well, actually. I bet DEI might have had something to do with the organization of the table on the Abby Phillips show. But I will say this, who of something that crazy at a time like this?
California has been the petri dish. It has been the Wuhan Institute of Virology for the woke mind virus. California is where all of the diversity, equity, inclusion, critical race theory, LGBTQIA plus ideology has been festering. And it turns out when you need to fight a fire, it doesn't matter if your fire chief is gay, black, lesbian, trans. It matters whether or not you have a capable firefighting force. And they have intentionally tried to drive out all of the white people from the firefighting force in Los Angeles. Oh, we don't need white men to fight fires.
MAGA just out here operating like they get paid in DEI chips. Is that some form of currency in MAGA?
And yet, I'm wondering now, if your house is burning down, how much do you care what color the firefighters
you
are?
can respond and then we'll...
Listen, I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is black women. So let me be clear. Because you are a woman, or because I know that some of the right has been sharing these photos of the fact that I believe that the fire chief may be a woman or something, that has nothing to do with it. We are looking at qualifications. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been about is saying, you know what? Open this up. Don't just look at the white men. Open it up and recognize that other people can be qualified. And the fact that we want to, at a time when people are dying.
Why does Scott Jennings just look like he's just heard for the first time the possibility that somebody else can be qualified? He looked, that's an interesting, you mean a black woman can be qualified? Is she speaking English over here? I ain't never heard nothing that crazy in my life. That is, wow. Let's also acknowledge the fact that the educational statistics that she just articulated and juxtapose those with the way some of these boards are looking, where they apparently are always looking for the most qualified. It's supposed to be a meritocracy, yet you look at the imbalance between the education and the job prospects of, she's talking about black women, but you could put a number of demographics and fill in that Mad Libs.
Because the same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House, and I can promise you it was my ancestors that built the White House.
One more time. Let's go ahead one more time with that one.
Because the same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House, and I can promise you it was my ancestors that built the White House.
Just give them time. Just give them time. Yeah, just let something hit DC and a window pane fall from the White House, or a shingle fall off of that roof in 150 years. They going with DEI. It's locked and loaded. It's locked. It's probably drafts in people's Twitter folders right now, all about that. And you just know they're gonna blame DEI on whoever loses the Super Bowl. Just let it be the Ravens.
So listen, if we have been good enough to build this country, we are good enough to serve and die overseas, we are good enough to serve in other ways. And the fact that people actually decide that they want to engage in public service, whether it's sitting in Congress or whether it's serving on the fire department or the police department, should not be an issue. The fact is, stop trying to act as if only white men are the ones that are capable. Because right now you're sitting at a table with 3 very capable black women.
And let's also at this point acknowledge the fact that only when they want to point to women or minorities is this a conversation. When has there been a natural disaster and people got up and talked about the prevalence of white men and how that was problematic at this particular moment for this particular agency? I don't recall that conversation. So apparently they get to operate with impunity. But if anything happens where anybody brown or female is remotely within blame distance, you know, that whole 6 degrees thing, if we're within 6 degrees of something going wrong, it's our fault for existing. That's why I work for myself. That's why I went into business for my, because they ain't gonna be blaming me for what happened in the warehouse.
Local leadership, she was in Africa when this was going on and then had to scramble back.
And a mayor being overseas when a disaster happens, that can happen anywhere.
I would agree
with
that
Ted Cruz. The storm came through Texas, and Ted Cruz decided that he was going to flee.
And thank you for that one. So it's not politicizing it to raise public policy questions. I'm just going to mention that she happened to be in Africa when this natural disaster struck. We're not politicizing it, though. We're not politicizing it. Because the thing is, Ted Cruz was already at the airport. Yeah, because Ted Cruz was already at the airport. Matter of fact, he had boarded his flight. They wouldn't let him back. He said, no, my people need me. I can't go off and enjoy this tropical sunshine. My people need me back. And the boarding doors had closed. The boarding doors had closed on Ted Cruz. He couldn't get off.
The moment I sat on the plane, I began really second guessing that decision.
You guys are getting bogged down in the bureaucracy
details.
of this, the bureaucracy of it, and I'm getting bogged down in the rare earth minerals and the strategic imperative to stand up.
Just strip it
to the
of its
Russians.
resources without giving the people who live there full inclusion into
we
the
cannot
place
have
that they're
this
going to be.
I fully imagine that if we buy Greenland, the people of Greenland that live there would be fully participatory in that. They might like it. They'll probably be compensated for it. And I think it'd be a much better deal than they got right now.
No.
See, Abby Phillip, you see that anyway? You see that? That should be your first choice response to Scott. That's where you need to be. That's where you need to live right there. Anyway, that's where you need to be. I'm sorry. Did you just try and argue that it be in their best interest, despite what they actually are articulating now? You say, hey, but if we do it, if we just take over, I'm sure you'll love it. Let me guess. You gonna bring them Bibles too? You gonna convert them? Is that the whole thing? Just for their souls. Yeah, that's what it is. Because we going into Greenland to save souls. That's what we going in. We going into the houses with empty bags, and we gonna leave with full bags of souls that we're gonna take back to America and put in our bank accounts.
Anyway, we're sitting in D.C. right now. I just want to point out, if we're about to start talking about population, if that is the measure of who should have a state, I do want to point out that D.C. has more people and does not have statehood than some of our actual states.
You want to run that by me one more time, Scott Jennings? You should run that by me one more time.
I do want to point out that D.C. has more people and does not have statehood than some of our actual states.
Now, Jasmine Crockett is articulating that the people of D.C., which I happen to be one, do not have statehood despite having more population than some of our actual states. 2, to be exact, that is Wyoming and Vermont. And your response is thank God. Now, why would that be your response to why the people of DC are disenfranchised? Why would thank God? Why would that? What would that energy be about? Is that because it's a left-leaning jurisdiction like most cities? Is that why? Is it the diversity of DC? Like why is thank God where you go for disenfranchised Americans? You know, because we're so true to the ideals of the democracy and the melting pot that we all built, right? So that's just interesting energy. Yeah, it's interesting. Thank God from the fact that all these people are disenfranchised. Yeah, you just left it right out there. I picked it up though.
So let me be clear. That is not the measure of whether or not you get statehood. But what is very frustrating for people such as Stacey, and she is a wonderful representative, but she is limited in what she can do when you literally say you don't have a voice. And I appreciate what you did on the House
Well,
floor.
I always have a voice.
Well, yes,
I may
you
not
always
have a
voice.
vote.
Yes,
She may not have a vote, but she certainly has it.
And I, for one, also appreciate what she did on the House floor, in case you missed it.
I have a parliamentary inquiry. I note that the names of the representatives from the Americas, Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia were not called, representing collectively 4 million Americans. Mr. Speaker, collectively the largest per capita of veterans in this country.
Does the gentlelady have a parliamentary inquiry?
I asked why they were not called. Have some respect. It's not going to take.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I asked why they were not called from the parliamentarian, please.
Delegates-elect and the resident commissioner-elect are not qualified to vote. Representatives-elect are the only individuals qualified to vote in the election of a speaker. As provided in Section 36 of the House Rules and Manual, the speaker is elected by a majority of the members-elect voting by surname.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This body and this nation has a territories and a colonies problem. What was supposed to be temporary has now effectively become permanent. We must do something about this problem so that these 4 million. But I have a voice, and
I think that that's really the big issue, is that he was surrounded by what I would consider to be actual experts, people that had actual resumes talking of diversity, equity, inclusion, and people just getting jobs and they're not qualified. I mean, when you look at the people that he has decided to nominate for these posts, we're talking about people that have never served a day in a lot of these various agencies that he's now like, oh, you should go ahead and head this agency. He has specifically decided that loyalist is who he wants around him. People that will not give him that honest kind of reflective moment and say, you know what? This isn't what we do. And that is my biggest concern about this. And listen, I wasn't here serving as a member of Congress, so I can't say what he did and didn't do from an up close and personal perspective when he was in office before. But what I can say is what he threatens to do, along with the judgment that we've seen thus far going into this second administration, his judgment is way worse. I mean, looking at just the cabinet picks, obviously, we still have other decisions that he's going to have to make. But I can tell you one thing for sure, is that California will not have to worry if we get this done before Trump is in office. And if we wait, then I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay. Now, Jasmine Crockett did get some pushback on what the Trump administration might potentially do if this bleeds into his administration into and after inauguration.
I got to say two things. First off, when it comes to rhetoric, I get it. In private moments, Donald Trump complains about Gavin Newsom. I'm guilty of that too. I don't think the guy's a good governor. I think he's lousy. But you can't show me one single emergency disaster declaration that he rejected because he thought a governor was a bozo. He delivered for Puerto Rico. He delivered for every place that was hit by disaster.
But I think I disagree with Jasmine Crockett and her assertion that Trump's judgment is way worse. Because I remember the first administration. I remember some of the things said and done during the first administration. I think that he may have not have been surrounded by loyalists by virtue of the fact that he was just generally unprepared to win the presidency. And in that way, he was tethered to reality, just like the rest of us. He was no more prepared to take over the White House than we were for him to beat Hillary Clinton. He was no more prepared. Therefore, his cabinet looked how it looked. He basically looked around and said, anybody who want to stay can stay. Y'all good. This time around, he's had 4 years to figure out exactly who it is that he wants. But I have no question he would have done that the first time if he thought it was going to go that way. So don't sell the trauma that we went through from 2017 to 2021 short. That judgment was just as bad. Anybody need a refresher?
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts.
They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. You will not replace us. Very fine people on both sides.
President Trump is under fire.
Quote, why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here?
Growing outrage over how the Trump administration treats illegal migrants.
Tenía 55 días de no ver.
About when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman.
He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
Representative Ilhan Omar.
The
Radical
question,
left. Who is your
man?
Would you like me to condemn?
White Proud Boys and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. I mean, I have a mask right here. When I think I need it.